Chapter 2. Stepping off the plane and into FE3H International Airport was like stepping through a wardrobe into a new magical world. They landed at a private gate, though Ashe could see the public terminal across the way bustling with people going to or coming from destinations all over Fodland and beyond. As they walked through this more secluded part of the airport, Ashe marveled at the signs advertising picturesque versions of the aquatic city, automatic signs changing their display to show flight delays and cancellations. The hallways echoed with the sound of travelers speaking foreign languages and announcements from overhead speakers. At the end of the concourse, they were met by a smartly dressed, ginger-haired man. "Lord Gaspard," the man acknowledged soberly. "Welcome back to FE3H. I trust your flight was comfortable?" "Greetings, Gilbert," Donato greeted, shaking the man's hand. "Yes, the flight was lovely. Thank you. I always enjoy traveling this way." He brought Ashe forward, arm across his shoulder. "Gilbert, allow me to introduce you to my second son, Ashe Ubert. Ashe, this is Sir Gilbert Dominic, one of Prince Dimitri's primary aides. I'm sure you'll be seeing him around often while we're here." Ashe bowed politely. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Sir Dominic." Gilbert nodded. "The pleasure is all mine, young man. And please, just Gilbert is fine. Our staff will help you collect your bags and meet you at the house. If you follow me, we have a car waiting for you." Gilbert led them outside to a private drive and a sleek black luxury sedan. Flags with the royal seal were hanging from the antenna on either side, and the license plate proudly denoted the car as a diplomat vehicle. Sliding into the back seat, Ashe felt a little like a child at an amusement park. Everything about this trip so far had been a new experience. Flying in an airplane over the Fargan countryside, the airport itself with its chorus of different voices and sounds, even this car, simple and elegant, yet more than Ashe would have ever dreamed of years ago. They drove through the city, a magical sight of tall buildings, lights, and swaths of people. In the distance, the silhouette of the royal palace stood gallantly against the horizon. "Wow," Ashe thought, staring out the window. "It's amazing, just like in the stories." The car pulled up to a gated house near the western edge of the city, hidden among other homes and small businesses. Kristoff had told Ashe about their capital home, built generations ago for members of the council. Each of the governing families had one scattered around FE3H, though some closer to the royal family chose to stay in suites in the palace while on business. The house was very much like their home in Gaspard, more modest and cozy than extravagant. Looking back towards the center of town, Ashe could see the palace, blue-toned in the distance, otherworldly and extraordinary. "Soak it all in, Ashe," Donato encouraged. "We'll be here for a couple months, and there will be plenty of time to explore outside of the Parliamentary Council." Ashe nodded. "I'm looking forward to it." His father smiled. "Good. We'll rest today. Tomorrow, the real adventure begins." When Donato had said adventure, Ashe was pretty sure this wasn't what his father had in mind. The morning of the first meeting of the council, Donato awoke with a terrible sickness wreaking havoc on his body, complete with fever, chills, and a hacking cough. "He just needs some rest," their housemaid, Celia, assured him. "Of course, but what about the council?" Ashe asked. "We're supposed to report to the session today." The housemaid nodded and handed him an envelope from her apron pocket. "Lord Gaspard has requested that you be sworn into the session in his stead until he's recovered. We have already sent notice to the prince and the heads of the session, but if they don't receive the request in time, there's a letter and documents in this envelope." Ashe grasped the envelope with shaking hands. He means to send me alone?" Celia nodded. "You'll do amazing, honey, I'm sure. The first few days of the session are a lot of pomp and circumstance. Nothing should really happen until the end of the week. Your father should be better by then." "Sure. Okay, I guess I'll be off then." "Good luck, Ashe." She kissed the top of his head, and Ashe left the house, sliding into the waiting car. At the palace, a servant led Ashe down a dizzying array of corridors to the council chamber. When he entered, he looked around the room in awe. The other lords and noble families were milling about, casually chatting as they waited for proceedings to begin. On Ashe's left, at the front of the chamber, was the head table. There were tiered pedestals in the center, upon which there were 3 regally designed chairs. On the top tier sat the most ornately designed seat, where Prince Dimitri would preside over the parliamentary session. Below him would sit 2 other lords, whom the prince would seek as advisors during his reign. If Ashe's memory served him, those spots would be occupied by Duke Rodrigue Fraldarius, to the prince's right, and Lady Cornelia Armin, the current head advisor, to his left. In the center of the chamber, there were seats for the other lords and nobles of Fargus. Arranged in a semicircular pattern, each territory was allotted a space for up to 5 people. Traditionally, there would be the ruling lord, their heir if they were of age, and up to 2 other influential people from the territory. In recent news, however, most lords attended the session alone, or with few selected individuals. To Ashe's right, at the back of the chamber, was tiered group seating and a balcony reserved for other guests and the press. During the course of the year, many well-off schools planned trips to the capital to let students experience a piece of democracy firsthand. The press, of course, was a daily staple of capital life, one part as a trustworthy source of information for the people, and another as a salacious rumor mill. Ashe made his way to the space reserved for Gaspard and took a seat. He glanced around the chamber nervously, feeling small and confined, even in the gigantic chamber. He set the envelope from Lenato on the table in front of him and fidgeted with the ring he wore on his right hand. It brought him a sense of calm in such unfamiliarity. A bell tolled from somewhere in the chamber, and Ashe startled. It must have been a signal that the session was about to begin. The lords and nobles took their seats, and a hush fell over those gathered in the gallery. Moments later, a set of doors behind the head table opened, and out walked Prince Dimitri, flanked by Duke Fraldarius, Lady Armin, and a small security detail. Those gathered in the chamber moved to stand at the prince's arrival, the shuffling of clothes and papers and the squeaking of chairs echoing throughout the room, accompanied by the flashes and shutter sounds of the press's cameras. Prince Dimitri was every bit as regal and poised as Ashe thought he would be, tall and broad-shouldered, blonde hair tied back with a simple blue ribbon. He wore a simple suit and tie, and upon his head sat a plain silver circlet instead of a crown. At a glance, one might not think there was anything special about him until they looked closer. The prince and his advisers took their seats, and the chamber followed. When the room had quieted again, Duke Fraldarius called the session to order. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and dignitaries, members of the press, citizens of the Holy Kingdom of Fargus, it is my honor and privilege to call this 1180th session of the Kingdom's Parliamentary Council to order. By order of His Royal Highness Dimitri Alexander Bladed, we shall begin with roll. Duke Fraldarius began to call the names of the ruling houses of the kingdom. Jarin. Present, a man from Ashe's right proclaimed. Fraldarius. Marquis Glenn Theon Fraldarius, for Lord Rodrigue. Galate. Present. Gaspard. Ashe stood shakily. Ashe Ubert, for Lord Lenato Gaspard. Duke Fraldarius paused in his roll call, the chamber so silent you could hear a pin drop, but no one dared. Ashe was frozen. Did he make a mistake? Did he not respond correctly? The prince's eyes met Ashe's, a look of curiosity, but not unkind. Lord Ubert, the prince addressed him, you stand as a representative of Gaspard? The prince's questioning was a formality. Whenever an unexpected name appeared as a representative of the governing territory, a presiding royal leader asked if they stood as the territory's delegate. This meant the notice of Lenato's illness had not reached the prince before the session. All eyes from around the chamber were on Ashe as he gathered his courage and willed his voice not to shake. I do, Your Highness. My father has taken ill, and I stand ready to represent Gaspard in his stead. He lifted the envelope he had set on the table. Oh, I have the documentation. Where is Lord Christophe Gaspard? Lady Cornelia asked condescendingly. Is he not the true heir of Gaspard? The council room murmured with the way she had said true heir. It was no secret that Lenato had adopted a son and daughter, but it was also against tradition for adopted heirs to be accepted as nobility. Taboo even. Never mind stand-in for political matters. My brother had business at home and was unable to travel for this session, Ashe stuttered. This was his fear coming true, being denied by the nobility, not recognized as a representative of his father or his home. Your Highness, I advise striking Gaspard's attendance from this session for the lack of appropriate representation, Lady Cornelia said. It is most improper and a waste of the council's time. That is not fair, my lady, Ashe exclaimed, emboldened by the source of his territory and family's name. I have the proper documentation, and notice should have preceded my arrival. To Prince Dimitri, he continued, My sincerest apologies, Your Highness, for the disruption in your court, as it seems to not be the case. The prince raised his hand, cutting off any further comments from his advisor. Let me see your documentation, sir. Ashe shuffled from the table to the dais, handing the prince the envelope. He stepped back, bowed, and waited. Prince Dimitri thoroughly read over the documents, taking care to make sure everything was in order. Time seemed to stall. Somewhere in the gallery, a man coughed. No one dared speak. Not even the shudder of cameras could be heard. Finally, after what felt like hours, the prince nodded. On my authority, the council recognizes Lord Ashe as the representative of Gaspard, until such time arrives as his father returns. Lady Cornelia gasped and leaned over to the prince. Your Highness, I must protest. We cannot allow this commoner a place at this council. It is most improper. That is absurd, Cornelia, the prince responded. Lord Hubert has provided all the required documentation. In addition, there is no one else who could stand in Lenato's place, other than Christoph, who is, as you know, not in the capital. Lord Hubert is just as qualified as he would be. The fact that he is not related by blood is of little importance. But, Your Highness, the prince raised a gloved hand, silencing her protests. Enough! He turned his attention back to Ashe. Lord Hubert, you will assume your father's seat on this council in a temporary capacity until he has recovered enough to return. Thank you, Your Highness. Ashe bowed again, then moved to return to his seat. One more thing. He stopped and turned back to Prince Dimitri. Yes, Your Highness? Prince Dimitri smiled, his eyes shining a bright blue. Now that formalities are out of the way, please allow me to welcome you to Ferdiad, Lord Hubert. A moment of hesitation. Then Ashe returned the smile and bowed to the prince once more. After he took his seat once again, Duke Fraldarius continued roll call, and the day proceeded without further incident.